We're learning Lilu Nishmas, Yitzhak Ben Eliezer Yeshua Heschel, Dean Bacon's yard side is tonight in the schus of his everything he did for Klal Yisrael, for running Yeshiva University with a name like Bacon, couldn't have been easy, and the man who he dealt with Eichmann. He dealt with Eichmann. He tried to save Jewish lives, right? Dean Bacon was in Hungary, in Czechoslovakia. Yeah, he dealt with Eichmann Yamach Shemoy to save Yiddish lives. That's Ari's father. Remember Dean Bacon? Dr. Press, a graduate. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anyway. Okay, anyway. We're in the middle of a sugya, like we're going to pick up something, but I think it behooves us to go back over it a little bit. Okay. We're speaking about poilim and people switch changing their minds, so to say. We began with the circus the Hitu says the diak was Hitu was that two poilim went ahead and messed each other up. Where on the other hand, if it was a balabas that was going ahead and changing his mind, it would said chazru. So the first terutzim we gave to understand the Gemara, why Tarumis was speaking about a poil higher to go ahead and hire poilim. The last teretz we gave, it's speaking about a balabas, and we brought a raya that for a balabas also, even though we can use the lashon of hitu, the same way we can use the lashon of chazru. So let's just look at that for a second. But why the lines get count up from the top page 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's 12, 14 lines down. The Tanya on Ayin Vav Amid Beis. Hasoicher es umanim. The summon high is umanim. The hitu es balabayis, and that's a raya. The lashon the hitu es balabayis. We see the lashon of the hitu can be used when you're going ahead and going back on a deal. Oy balabayis hitu ay son. Ein lem zezel tarumas. They only have tarumas. If they didn't go to the work site, if the donkey drivers they went and they didn't find the cargo, the tfuah to carry, he went to go ahead and work a field, and the field turned out to be moist, then you would give what? As much to complete schar. You can't compare a donkey driver who's coming with a full load rather than not. So when it says chamushlim, it does not really mean mushlim. It means how much a person be willing to pay to make the trip, but not as arduous. And or a person who would rather sit around and not work a field. And that's the main part of the brisa that we're going to have to start to share on. But we're going to be referring back to the rest of the brisa throughout. I'll go back and refer to it over here as we get along. There's just one big question, fellas. We learn Masechta Baba Kama, and we know that people cause other people losses. It's called hezek. We said you can cause a person a loss and be pata. It's called grama. However, there are situations where it's immediate and for sure, and it's closer to being direct. Then we call it garmi. So why over here? When you go ahead, a person thinks he is going to make X amount of money for the day. A balabas thinks he's going to go ahead and get a job done. You now go ahead, and say, guess what? You're out of work. You don't have a job today. Didn't you cause them a monetary loss? Isn't it garmi? Why do they only have taroimus? Why do they only have complaints on each other? They should be what? There should be a chi of money. Remember, taroimus means there's no chi of money. It means you have a right to have a kvetch, a right to hold something against me. What about garmi? We learn Masechta Baba Kama. Says Taisus. That's an important Taisus. Says Taisus on Ayin Vav Amid Beis. The first Taisus from the top. It's the only Taisus, guys. Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that you were listening, Dove. It's good. Kashalari. The Kaimalon Kreb Meya did Dayan Dina de Garmi. We learned Masechta Baba Kama that we go ahead and if something is garmi, meaning it's a level more than grama, you're going to be chayiv. In Cain, why do you only have taroimus if you go back on a deal? If you went back on a deal, you should be chayiv to pay them like a worker that's out of work. Since as a result of you going back on your word, you caused them a monetary loss for the day. A great question. They still have time that day to go ahead and find a job. In other words, when you went back on the deal, it wasn't late in the day. It was early enough in the day that they could have found other work. So what's the kasha then? So why do you have taroimus? If they can find other work, right? So why do you have any complaints then? You'll only find the what al de tircha. In other words, that's the tarumis. I had a job. I thought I was working. Now you're going to make me go ahead and find other people. I have a kvetch on that. But in other words, it's mashma. If you don't have time in the day to find a job, you'd be chayav to pay. There wouldn't be taroimus. There'd be more. There'd be a chayav to pay. You'll be causing damage. Grama, garmi, grama's pata, garmi. Okay, so it's a good important places to know. If, again, you could find other jobs, right? If, again, finding other jobs means the job is available, I mean, right? Or else you're right. Mm-hmm. Okay, now we just had the case of if the wagon driver goes, the donkey driver goes, finds empty, that you're going to go ahead and pay him, but you're going to pay him out like what? Like a schar bottle. You're going to pay him like a seicha bottle. So now, Ayin Vav Amid Aleph, let's begin. Today's daf, we're beginning Ayin Vav Amid Aleph. We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines to the bottom. Amid base, I'm sorry. Tani Tani Kamei the Rav. A reciter of Brises was saying in front of Rav, Noisin lehem scharon mushlim. In the case of where the wagon driver went to find what? Cargo, he didn't find cargo. Where the worker went to find to work in the field, and he found the field wet. In that case, you're going to pay him what? Like you're going to pay him full wages. Now, the Brisa finished off not really full wages, but it's like a schar bottle. Amalei, Rav said, Chavivi Amar, Chavivi, that's Reb Chia, fellas. Reb Chia was his uncle. Chavivi Amar, Ilu Anahavoy, if I was there, Lehavi Avina Lehen, El Kapel bottle. Viat Amr Noislem Schorin Muslim. Again, we had a Brisa. The Brisa said two things. One, you pay him Scham Muslim, and then it finishes off and says, however, you can't compare a guy who goes with a full load to an empty load and a guy who rather sit around and not work the field. Meaning, you're going to pay like a boiled bottle. So what did Rav say in Reb Chia? He just said that. He said, I wouldn't pay him full wages. I'd pay him what? It's the bottle. Isn't that what the Brisa just said? On that word that you said that you're going to pay him schar mushlim, you can't compare someone who comes with a full load to an empty load. Bottle. So in other words, in fact, the Rav is parroting in the name of Rav Chia exactly what the Brisa said. It says, in other words, Rav only heard the first. Again, he only heard the first part of the Brisa. He didn't hear the latter part of the Eina Doima Barekum. He didn't hear the latter part. He only heard the first part of paying scham mushlim. So he thought it was full. Ikadi Army Saimu Kamei. Others say another report about exactly Rav said regarding Rav Chia. V'hachi Kamar Chavivi. This is what Chavivi. This is what Rav said. Chavivi Amar Ihavi Ano Lehavi Avina Le Klal. I want to give him everything. We had America Poil bottle, right? So in other words, Chavivi is going against the Brisa. Now Rav Chia is a Tana. He very much could do that. The question is why? If the guy went to work, got up early, took his donkey, went, ready, fully loaded, ready to full load, comes there, there's nothing to do. Guy gets up, all his instruments, going to the field, going to work the field, comes there, feels it's wet, can't do anything. Why would Reb Chia say you don't get anything? Yeah, we have a Brisa that says kapal bottle. So what is the okay? Elakasha, so it's shver. Says Elakasha hach, like kasha. The Brisa is not shver. Had the saira la are midaorta, had the saira la arta midaorta. If the worker went ahead and he checked out the field before. He went there before and he saw and he understood that it could be wet or that it's going to get wet. Then he took this job with that in mind. And therefore they shouldn't have gone in the morning. In other words, if he went ahead and Saira la'ara morta may orta from the evening before, the worker went and checked it out. Again, this is pre the weather reports on your phone, and he went and checked it out, and he saw that, you know what, it's already wet, and he went anyway. What did Rabbi say? Nothing. However, if he didn't go, If he didn't go, the last line of the Gemara, Rashi, Loisa Yura Mirta, Allah Hoya Lases Lev Lidava, Aladiam, the Balbus should have gone ahead and informed them in Tusa the Lacha, Lechem Klum, Viyav like a Pel bottle. In other words, it's if the worker didn't go there the day before, the owner who owns the field, he should have gone ahead and informed them, and he didn't, and therefore you have to make a Pel bottle. So the difference is it's the same field, and conditions were the same conditions in the contract. However, there's another addendum to this contract. If on one hand the worker he himself should have known better, then you don't have to give him anything. How could he have known better? Because he went and checked it out. If on the other hand he didn't check it out, it's incumbent upon the balabas to go ahead and inform him. Failure to inform him, and they go to the field, you're going to pay him kipol bottle. Very good. He had the Amarava, Hayman the Ogar Agiri Larifka. A guy went ahead, he hired someone to go ahead and dig a ditch. The Asa Mitra Umal Yamaya. And it came along, right, and it filled with water. If he checked out the night before, stayed the Lapoilam. It's the workers' loss. Then say the Balabayas. It's the Balabayas loss, the Yavla Kapel bottle. Which is what we just said. Says Rashi, say to the poilim, Geshamim Shiardo Hefsid Poilim who the Amalhum is like a garim, he doesn't have to give anything because you're mazel, right? Loisari more to say to the Balabayas, then why? The Amalei mi yema de ladaita the hu ara agrasan. They can have it finally kind of good. You're going to show me this field that's wet. Maybe you hire me out for another field. Yeah, guys, maybe you hire me out for another field. So how do you know? Rava, another din, a bunch of dinim of Rava regarding workers. Hayman the oiger agure lidavla. It's not so good. A person goes ahead and he hires people to go ahead. Davla means to take water from a ditch and irrigate the field. So to draw water. The Yasa Mitra comes along rain and it goes ahead and irrigates the field, and you don't need them anymore. So Peseda the Poilim. It's Mina Shemayim. That's it. Asa Nahara, but if the river comes and it goes into the irrigation ditch, and now it's not necessary for them, right? And the Poilim don't know the meaning of this place, right? And the Balabayas does know, then say to the Balabayas, V'yalev Kepoil bottle. Then he should have informed them beforehand, I'm hiring you out to work, but be aware that if the river rises up and it's going to fill up, and he didn't do it, they thought that they were needed, and they hired it out on that smach. But in fact, if the field could be irrigated by the Nahar and the owner knew about it, he should have informed them. His failure to inform them, he has to go ahead and pay Kipoil bottle. For Amar Rava, another din, Hayman the Oiga Ugure Ladavla, he was hired to go ahead and irrigate the field. Upasik Nahara, and they were taking buckets and using the river and putting it into the canals. Yuma, and it stopped half the day, and they're not able to go ahead and finish the job. Ilayavid the pasuk pseid the poilim. If it's not the norm for it to stop, then the Balabayas couldn't have anticipated that, so it's the bad luck of the poilim. But of the pisk, if it's normal that it will only work for a certain amount of hours, so if the poilim b'nei masa, if they live in that city and they know it. So say to the poilim, because they accepted it, knowing that they only have X amount of time to irrigate the field because the water is going to stop. But la b'nei masa, if they're poilim from other countries, they migrate in, then say to the balabayas, then what would be say to the balabayas, because he should have informed them. V'yama Rava says Rava another din, Hayman the agar agure lavidasa, he hires poilim to go ahead and do a particular job. V'shalom avidasa b'paga the yuma, and they finish the job in half the day. If he has a job, further work for them that's easier than that job, Yavlu, give them that job. You hire them for a day. Again, you hire them for a day. They finished the job that you needed. Go ahead and continue, but give them the job that is what is easy enough. Yeah. Inami the kavasa. It's a job that is commensurate with the previous job. Then mafkid lahu. You can go ahead. What the pile has to go ahead and do it, and you can command him to do it. But the kashmine, a job that's higher than that, they lay mafkid lahu. That you can't, because they can say, I only hired for this type of work. I didn't hire myself out for a different type of work. The nice them scharan muslim, and you have to pay them what the balabas. If they can't find an other malacha that's either easier or commensurate with that, they didn't have to pay him for the whole day. Fred the Gemara Mai, why if Yesif Kepoil bottle? Again, they're not working anyway. They're not, in other words, guys, we have a rule. What's the rule of thumb? That how much would a worker be willing to take not to go ahead and work? So he's not working. They worked half a day. And now he doesn't have any other work for them. He doesn't have any other work for them to do. So you're telling me you got to pay them the full wage? But why? Why don't you just pay him for that half a day? Why don't you pay him the wage of a poil bottle? After all, it's speaking about people who are not working, and they would want to go ahead and not work. It says the Gemara Kikam Rava. When did Rava say this? Din that you have to pay him schar mushlim? It's ba'achlushe de mechuza. It's the schleppers of mechuza. These are very, very powerful working people. The loy of it cholshi. If they don't work, they come weak. In other words, you're not. What's the schar bottle? How much would you be willing to pay what to not work? These are workaholics. These are workaholics. They want to work. So therefore, what? Therefore, you pay them schar mushlim.
They can go home.
What?
You paying for.
Well, they can go home. There's no job. Why should they? Why should they stay? It's not where like you gotta check. Punch a clock. Not punching. It's American value. You get paid. You don't get paid, right?
If they got another job, of course you wouldn't have to pay them. Let's say they landed another job, you wouldn't have to pay them.
If they have time to get another job, l'chayra, you hire them out for the day. If they get another job, I should have to pay them. Yeah.
Is this a job that could have been done with normally taking a whole day?
No, it seems to be that. It doesn't be kablanis. It seems to be a schar yom, a day worker, and they just happen to do it quicker than you anticipated. Going back over now, we're going back over the Brisa, guys. Okay.
Because they work fast, they have to do more work. Doesn't make sense.
What? They don't have to do more work. Listen, watch. If the person hired them for a day, if you have work that is less than what they were hired out for, or equal, then they were hired for the day. You work them for the day. If, on the other hand, you don't have, you still have to pay them for the day. For the Gemara, why do you have to pay them full? Pay them, they're not working, and they'd rather not work than work. And for the Gemara, speaking about, you're right. If it was a regular person, you pay them kischar bottle. You wouldn't have to pay them full wage. Good. Now, to understand the next piece of Gemara, guys, we have to go over yesterday's daf. Okay, so we began doing yesterday's daf today by speaking about the teamsters, the donkey guys, not having what to schlep, and the workers going to the field and finding it, unworkable. Good. Now let's pick it up. The medamam amurim, second word lie down on the base. The medamam amurim. Now we're going back on the case of the of umnis. Shalei eskila b'melacha. They didn't begin working. Al mesil melacha. If they did begin working, sham lehem masha asu. You evaluate what they did. Ketzad kiblu kama liktsar. Now this is kablanis, guys. They didn't. It wasn't a day worker. They did a specific job. If they were makabel a kama standing grain to cut. B'shnei sloyim for 8 dinarim. Katzru chetzia, they did half. Vaniya chetzia. So how much would you give them? 4. They're owed 4. Beged la'aroi, beged to weave b'shnei sloyim. Agru chetzia, vaniya chetzia. Now, we apparently said, okay, so you only give them 4. Shama lehem es masha asu. Evaluate for what they did. So hoya, for example, yafa shisha dinarim. If what is left to do is 6 dinarim, fellas. In other words, it went up. When the job began, it was 8 dinarim. Guys, the job began, it was 8 dinarim. They did half, which is 4. But to finish the other half, it's going to cost you 2 more. It's going to cost you 6. What's the din? Noisin lehem sela, they still get 4. They still get 4. In other words, the extra 2 goes on the balabayas to go ahead, man. And now this is when they change their mind. Or yigmru malachton, or let them finish the job. V'yitnu shtei sloim and get what? Get the 2 sloim. Guys, what's the svara? What's the svara that these workers should have the upper hand? They went ahead, they contracted out, they said we're going to finish the job. In the middle of the job, they leave the job. To finish the job now, it's going to cost you more. Says the Tanakama, you still pay them for their work, because the Tanakama says that Poilim Yodoi Al Ha'el Yoina. The Poilim have the upper hand, even though what? They changed their mind. The reason being, Avodehem v'loy avodim la'avodim. The reason is, Rashi says, according to Gemara Kedushin, we're Hashem's avodim. We're not an evet to an evet. So therefore, to change your mind is a good thing. That's why Yodai Al Yoina. We as an American value is, what are you talking about? You hired out for a job, you don't do a job? It says the Tanakama. Again, Reb Daisy disagrees. But says the Tanakama, we need a svara. Guys, you need a svara. How can it be that they don't lose anything when they're messing this guy over? They're messing him over. And what's the answer? Since avodayhem v'loy avodim la'avodim, therefore they have a right to change their mind, and therefore they get the 4 in the scenario, despite the fact it's going to cost them 6 to finish the job. 6. Correct. Contrary to the Mishnah, as we said yesterday, this Tana does not hold like the Mishnah. We said enachinami. Now says v'im sela. Now, guys, v'im sela, and if you can finish the job for a sela, noislim sela. So the Gemara is going to ask on the last 2 dinim, fellas. On the dinim of the Chachamim, right? This is the Rabbanan. When the worker changes his mind, 3 dinim. One, if they went up in price, if it went up in value, the workers still get the same amount, or they finish the job for the same amount, or if they didn't go in value, they still get the same amount. The Gemara is going to ask on the last 2 cases, it's pashut. Bishleim in the first case is a chiddush. It's costing the other guy 2 more, and they still retain the 4. But the last 2 that finish the job for what you contracted out, or if it remained the same, the Gemara says pshit. Okay, let's now go ahead, do the Gemara on this piece of the Brisa, then we'll go back and do Reb Daisa and on his piece of the Brisa. Okay, that's the setup over here. So says the Gemara. Amamar. Going back over to Brisa. Shomalahem esmasha asu. We evaluate what they do. Ketzad, for example, hayayafa shisha dinarim. To finish the job is going to be 6 dinarim. Noisilhem sela, you still give them 4. It's going to cost them 2 more. Kasavi Rabbanon yad poil al yoina. Because the Rabbanon who say they hold the worker has the upper hand. The worker has the upper hand. Guys, go up in Rashi. Go up a little bit. Yad poil al yoina. And even if the worker changes his mind, he's able to change his mind. And we dashin you guys, Rashi tells you a svara. How's it possible? This guy changes his mind and he's not losing? And the answer is, they're my avodim, not your avodim. Rashi tells you that svara. That's the svara of the Chachamim. Why yodei hapoilim al hatach al yoina? Okay. Back in the Gemara, right? Or now finish it up. Says Pshita, that's pashit, right? What else is there? That's pashit. That's what you contracted out for in the first place. Like tzricha, the Iker Avidasa, it went up. Wages went up. The Imru and the Poilim, they separated. For Ozal Balabayas, Upaisinu, and the Balabayas went and he appeased them. Now, you might think it appeased them on what the higher rate. Somehow the Tema Metzia relay, they're able to say to the Balabas, keep Isinon. I know we changed our mind, but now we're coming back to work for you. Adaite to toughest lana igra. It's the das the what finish it what on the new upper price. Kamash Valon, the Amalahu, the Balabais can say to them, Adaite tarachna lechu ba'achilishtia. I hired you out, I'll be matriach myself to feed you, but not to pay you more. And he can do that. In Achraim, he's going to have to feed them, but he doesn't have to pay him more. So in other words, we're giving an ukimta to that lashon of the brisa that apparently is pashit. They can finish it. The chiddush is that workers went up. And they could say, you know what, we went back to you. And we don't want 8, we don't want another 4, we want 6 or whatever it's going. The answer is no. You can tell them you finish it for the original 8. You did 4 already, you're getting another 4. And he can say, I'm taking you back to give you something to eat. Seller, noislam seller. And if it didn't go up in price, guys, if it remained the same, then what? They finish it for a seller. For the Gemara, pshita, it's pashit. Like tzricha, the zol avidasa, the workers went down. Meikara. The workers, the zol avidasa meikara, v'agrinim b'tafei zuza. In other words, workers were going for let's say 7 zuz, and he gave him 8. Agrinim b'tafei zuza. Ul b'soif ayak avidasa become b'tafei zuza, and now it's worth more. So, guys, they were hired out. Let's say everyone was getting 7. They were hired out for 8. Now it went up to 8, and they want 9. They're going to only get 8. You can get another 4. Says no. Some other tema in relay, they can say to him, "Tafei zuza amitlan, tafei zuza havlan." When we went ahead and you hired us for an extra zuz. Let's get the extra zuz now. Kamash v'lan amalahu ki amalahu loch tafei zuza tlohavi kimlahu. That's when I needed to incentivize you to come, because I knew you wouldn't come for unless I give you a little more. But hash the kimlahu. Now I said that what? Now kimlahu. Yeah. And therefore what? Kimlahu, and therefore I'm not going to give you any more money. Now, back in the Brisa, guys, back to the Brisa on yesterday's Amid Beis. Okay, Rabbi Daisa, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down where it gets wide. Rabbi Daisa Amar, Shama lehem masha asa liyasais. You go ahead and evaluate what they did. Shisha dinarim. If now it went up in price, instead of 4 dinarim, it's going to cost you 6. So nice lem shekel. You know what you give? You give to the workers a shekel. What's a shekel? 2 dinarim. It's Gemara's way of making you understand the monetary system. Okay? So now it went up. Guess what? It's only going to cost you out of your pocket the same amount. Why? Because instead of paying them 4, you're going to pay them 2. So why? Because what does he hold? He holds that balabayis yada ala yoina. And now continues the brisa, guys. Oyigmru malachtem yidlishnei slayim pashit b'msela nice nemsela. Good. B'medem mamurim b'dava avid. That's provided why it's not a dava avid. A dava avid, you can go ahead and hire workers to finish the job, or you can go ahead and trick them. Okay. So now the Gemara now is going to explain Rabbi Daisa Shita. Okay. Back in the Gemara, Rabbi Daisa Aimer. Why you only give him 2? He disagrees with the Tanakama. He says the yad of the poil is on the tachtaina, and therefore, since you changed your mind and it's going to cost me more money to finish the job, you're going to have to take the loss. Pshita. You can't expect them to give up money. So like tzricha dezol avidasa, feimer balabayis. Okay, so what happened over here? According to this, what happened over here is the Zol Avidasa, that their poilim went down in price. The Ema Balabayas, and the Balabayas went ahead and he distanced himself from them. He changed his mind. For Azul Poilim Paisua, now the Poilim, they want to keep the job, and they mafias him. So Mal de Tema, I might think that like Reb Daisa, since the yad of the poil is on the Daktoina, Metzia Amalu, the Balabais is able to tell the poilim, Adaite de Betzrislimi Agrei. Since workers went down, I hired you now for less. Kamash Malon the Amrile, Adaite Davina Lua Avidas Shapirta. We can say, no, you hired us out, we're going to do a really good job, and therefore, even though workers went down, we'll still go ahead and finish the job for 4. Again, it's a nice drasha. It's a nice drasha, and Svara it doesn't make any sense. You hide yourself out, right? You hide yourself out. In a chanami, it's a drasha. There's no, he doesn't apply the drasha over here. You're a worker. You're being paid. You're not an eved. You're not an eved. You're being paid. Most times, avodim don't get. Most of the time, you don't get anything. They get food. Okay. Seller, nice name seller. It's in the same kasha pshita. Rabbi said, so if the job stayed the same, you keep the same amount of money. It says, Rav Huna, Breda of Nasin, like tzricha the ozel inu gabe, Zuzah meikara. In the beginning, the poilim, right? They didn't want to work, and he gave them a little extra. And they needed work. Saif Zalabidasa. In the end, it went down. So Ma'ad Tema, according to Rabbi, since Pearl Yada Tachtaina, Batza Zuzah Misalahu. He went ahead and he said, now it's going to be less. Batza Zuzah Yavinalahu, so I'll give you less. Kamash Malon, the Amrile, Ki Amarnalacha, but Batza Zuzah, Layavi Kimlach. We didn't want to go ahead. So I think. Yeah, what initially the work was, guys, it was like 2 slayim and 2 zuz. They hired themselves out for 2 zuz. They hired themselves out less 2 zuz. They hired themselves out for less. Okay, they hired themselves out for less. So the chiddush is that Rabbi can't go ahead now that workers went down, let Rabbi and give them less than the seller that he had contracted out in the first place. Just see it in the words. I'm not putting the Oislu inu gabe zusa meikara. They went ahead and they gave him a discount, guys. They gave him a discount. Ulbesoif zola vidasa, and in the end, workers went down. So in other words, now the discount is the regular price. So I'm going to give you less zuz. In other words, I'm going to give you 7, not 8. A zuz and a dinar are synonymous, guys. Guys, again, originally workers were going for 8 and zuz, 9 zuz. These guys hired themselves out for 8. Now change their mind. Guy changed the good worker. The balabas changed their mind. Them fires the balabas. Kamash Malon, and you think the balabas can say, "No, I'll give you 7." Just like when workers were going for 9, I gave you 8. Now that the workers are going 8, I'll give you 7. Kamash Malon, the Amilacha, they can say, "Kiam amanalacha bebatzazuzad lehabi kimla." We didn't have another job to do. Hash the kimlach, but now we do. We can get. Amarav says Rav halacha kreb daisa. The halacha is like Reb Daisa, that the yad poil is al tachtoina, guys. Not like the chachamim. This answers your question, Rabbi, right? Again, you see, it's a drasha. It's not in Svara. Would you agree with Rabbi Yehuda Reb Daisa? I mean, the Tanakama that you change your mind and you don't take a loss, it's going to cost the guy more. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, but anyway, so the halacha is like Reb Daisa that the yad poil is on the tachtoina, and in the case where it's going to the poil changes his mind, and it's going to cost him more to finish the job, then what? The loss is going to come out of the poil's salary. Does Rav really say that? A poil is able to change his mind even half the day. A poil is able to change his mind half the day. Now, guys, where did Reb Daisa say his din? Again, let's go over to Brisa. You hired workers to go ahead and truck in chitin. You hired workers to go ahead and do a field. And so if you look at the words of Reb Daisa, guys, 3 lines down. Ketzad, 3 lines down. When it gets wide on the Amid base. Kiblu kama liksa. Plug in.
Oh. Okay, I'm sorry, I need help.
Huh? Guys, 3 lines down where it gets wide on the Amid base. Kiblu kama liktsar. The workers were makabel a kama to cut. Is that a skiryam or is that kablanis? Say kablanis. Katzruchir. Beged le'aroig. A beged to go ahead and weave. Is that kablanis or what? Or skiris? That's kablanis. You were hired for a specific job. So we got a problem now, guys. What's our problem? You Rava said the halacha. You Rav said the halacha is like Reb Daisa, and on the other hand, you Rav said a poil is able to change his mind. Mashma, he has the upper hand. Correct. What's the easiest way out to avoid this? There's a difference between kablanos and schiros, working yourself out. When did guys get this straight? One more time, guys. Look at me. Reb Daisa said his din pashtus by kablanos. That's the case he gave. You're hired to go ahead and cut a field. You were hired to weave something. That's kablanos, a complete job. There we said that the balabas has the upper hand, the poil has the lower hand. Rav said that Allah is like Rabbi Doisa. Now Rav said that a sakir, a poil, and stam a poil is a schiyom, can change his mind half the day. Mashma, he has the upper hand. And Rav said both memories. The easiest way to answer the memory would be, Rav said is then Allah is like a doisa by kablonis when it was a specific job. And Rav said that poil can change his mind is by speaking about a day worker. Says the Gemara. The chitema, and if you're going to say, guys, this is going to stay. That's why the chitema is going to stay. It's going to stay. Usually chitemas we reject. This chitema is going to stay. The chitema, if you're going to say, shiny leila Rav Doisa, being schiris, the kablanos, there's a difference between schiris and kablanos, right? It says the last Rashi on the page, shiny leila being schiris, the kablanos, the gabi schiris is yilahai taima, the avdei heim v'lo yavodim la'avodim. By schiris, Rav agrees with the svara of the Tanakama that you're an eved to Hashem and no one else. Aval b'kablanis ein ze eved elo liatzmai. For kablanis, you're working for yourself. You're not working for anybody else. You're working for. You got a job to do. You're working to make your right. For Rabbi Doisa b'kablanis ma'iri. Rabbi Doisa speaking about kablanis. Kediktani kiblu karma liktzar begel right. With the Rav b'schiyim. So that's the guys. That would be the difference between the two. By a schir where you're working for the guy, you're an eved. On the other hand, by kablanis, which is the answer Rabbi Doisa. Rabbi Doisa said his thing would answer your question. Okay, now. Umi shiny late. Does Rabbi Doisa really make a chilik between being kablonis and schiris? Vatanya hasaychras apoyel ulchatziayoim shama shemeis lemeis. A guy is hired out to work and he hears that what in the middle of the day one of his relatives that he's b'chayit misalba is dead. Or he gets sunstroke. If he's a day worker, he gets his schar. He's an honest. You can pay him. You get right. You give him schar of chatziyayon. You don't pay him for the whole day. In kablim hu noisin like kablim uso. Then you give him what he contracted out for. Now we're not making this is not making a distinction between skiris and kablonis. Right over here, fellas, there's no distinction between skiris and kablonis. Now money. If you could take me to the Rabbanon who argue on Rabbi Doisa, my yashama shemes leimeis oishach zachsuchama the honest kilo yonis namihu amar Rabbanon yad poel al yoina. Fellas, the reason over here that they're getting their wages only because there was an honest. Like the chachamim, and you're not an eved, right? So you can you're the poel al yoina. You're getting paid anyway. So this can't be the chachamim. It's mashma from this brisa. The whole reason you're getting your wage is because you were an honest. The chachamim hold, change your mind. Even then you'll get your wage, right? Kili avodim, la avodim, yeah? So therefore, because that reason, when it makes it dependent upon an accident, obviously what? It can't be the chachamim. Ela lav Reb Doisa. It must be Reb Doisa. Now, you said schiris and kablonis in the same breath. There's no difference between the two. So we have a stira in Rav. Rav on one hand said that Allah is like Reb Doisa, that yad poil al tachtoina, and in the same breath he said yad poil al yoina. You can go ahead and have karat in the middle of the day, and you can't make the distinction between kablanis and stiris because Reb Doisa himself didn't make that distinction. The answer is, guys, he does make that distinction. Okay? The answer he does make that distinction. That's why I told you the chitem remains. And for the Gemara, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Labrios says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Really, there is that chilek, guys. That's the teretz, guys. The teretz is he said like Reb Doisa by kablanis, and he said you can change your mind by schiris. You just had a brisa that equated the two, right? And b'dava of it, v'divriyakol. The brisa above is speaking by the davar of it. By a davar of it, you can even hire out other workers, right? So if it's a davar of it. And therefore, no one can have charata. Guys, even the chachamim who hold that yad oil al yoina, that's only when it's not a davar of it, something that you're going to be immediate. If it's something that immediate, everyone says that what? The poil cannot. So if it's a davar of it, let's say the guy's a flax soaker, let's say he's making an orange for a mace, and then he hears that a mace dies, and that he has to misabel over, and he can't finish the job. You're still going to pay him. You know why? Because he's an honest. But don't tell me that it's the divya that it's once it's speaking about a davar of it, it's not that's not machlokes, the chilik between Reb Dois and the Chachamim. Reb Dois and the Chachamim is speaking where it's not a davar of it. This brisa that said that only makes that you can get your full wages is speaking about a davar of it, and therefore it's the Riyakol, very geschmack as anything. Geschmack to me, guys. You guys look at your shot. Doc, you look at finished. Maybe you should stand up at the stender. Are you good? Nights at the stender. Yeah. Kiss. Okay. Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Okay. Divrei Tanan. Kol Mishana Yadi Ala Tachtaina. Anyone who's Mishana Yada Tachtaina, guys, that we saw. That's Masechta Baba Kama. That's you hired the guy to make a red. You gave it to a tzaba to go ahead and dye it red. He dyed it black, and vice versa. And the Mishnah said anyone who changes his mind has the lower hand. Good. Now, Bishleim, this is the last two clauses of the Mishnah. Bishleim, Bishleim, that clause, this Sasam Latana, Reb Yehuda. According to Reb Meir, guys, the Shina is Kaina, and you only give them to the mate Simrai, right? Right, see, right. You give it to the guy, the wool, and he dyes it. All you get back, if he's Mashana, he's a Goslin, he's Kaina. All you get back is the worth of the wool. You don't take into account that it got worth more. So who does it go according to? Rabbi Yehuda, who says, so that's the Chiddush over here. Kol Mashana Yel Tachtoina, but in other words, whatever, if the Yitzia is more than, expenditure is more than the improvement, it gives the expenditure, and vice versa. The next clause. Doesn't account to go ahead and that anyone who changes his mind, right? Anyone who changes his mind. So l'chayra, we have a kasha, right? It says over here, anyone who changes his mind, yadai alha, yadai alachtaina, right? Anyone who changes his mind, read this clause, anyone who changes his mind is yadai alachtaina. So what do we see? That even by a Sker Yaim, Reb Doisa says yadai alachtaina, and not like Rav. And not like Rav. Guys, call anyone who changes his mind. Who's anyone? Even a poil. Even a poil. What was that teretz? Rav Stira. He passes like Reb Doisa by Kablonis, and he passes like the Chachamim by what? By Skiris. Over here we're saying anyone, the clause of the Mishnah, anyone who goes ahead and changes his mind. Meaning, the first part of the Mishnah was speaking about Kablonis. So therefore, the Kol Asuya is coming to include the Skiris, that even a Sachir, it's coming to explain the Resha, even a Sachir that changes his mind loses his money. Yadei ala tachtaina. That's not like Rav. That's the kasha. That's the kasha. It's not like Rav. That's the kasha. Elo, you have to say Reb Doisa Tarti Kama. Reb Doisa said two dinim, guys. What did he hold? He said Yadei ala tachtaina in both cases. Side by Skiris and side by what? And side by Kablanis. Rav Sabla Kavase Bechada. He agrees with him by Kablanis. Upoligla Bechada. And Rav is a Tana, and Rav argues in him by a Sker Yoim. He says a Sker Yoim that Yadei al Tachtaina. Rav says Sker Yoim Yadei al Hel Yoina. Again, what's that? Rav is a steer in Rav. Passes like Reb Doisa. That's Kablan. That like what? That the poil is Yadei al Tachtaina. Yet on the other hand, it says the Bechatzia Yom he could change his mind. Yeah. So what's the teretz? Reb Doisa doesn't make a distinction. So he agrees with Reb Yoina. Reb Doisa, he agrees with Reb Doisa by Kablanus. That's when he said Hilchsak Reb Doisa. And when it comes to the Sacher, he said, what? The Sacher could change his mind. Chatzi Hayay. Okay, good. Iba Yisema. Now this is going back, guys. This is going back. Iba Yisema. Another way to explain this, and it has nothing to do with Schiris. In other words, your kasha was predicated upon that the last part of the Mishnah is coming to Schiris, and you had a kasha on Rav. If it's not talking about Schiris, we still have you don't have a kasha on Rav. Iba Yisema, Kol HaChayzba Yelo Tachtainu L'Chidetanya. Kol HaChayzba Ketzad has nothing whatsoever, guys, to do with Schiris. It's the following case. The guy sells his field to his friend for 1,000 zuz. V'nosnei mois mehen masayim zuz. He gives him 200 zuz. He gives him 200 zuz. Now, Bisman she'amoicha choyse boy. When the moicha goes ahead and changes his mind, yad lekeach alel yoina. Then the lekeach has the upper hand. What does that mean? Ratza oimeloi tainli mausi. Give me back my 200 sus. I tainli karka kenegen mausi, and give me 200 sus of land. Kenegen the money. That's yada alel yoina. So kol choyse boy yada tachtoina. So the moicher has a yada tachtoina because he changed his mind. Now, this has nothing to do with our shaila. We're speaking about a mechira, not speaking about schira. So therefore, it's not a kash on Rav. Mehechin might be you. In this case, where the moicher changes his mind, where does he collect from? Mina idios, from the best. Now we're going to see what that means. The best. Ubizman shalekeach choiseboy yad moicher alayoina. And when lekeach changes his mind, he wants his $200 back, 200 sus back. Then the moicher can do the following: Here's your money. When you collect from Ziburius, you collect from Ziburius. My son, in order to avoid this problem of people changing their mind, we have the following takana. That they shouldn't change their mind. Ketzad, Kaisav lay the following. Ani ploni ben ploni, merchati sada plonis the ploni be'elevzuz. I so and so. I'm selling to so-and-so this field for 1,000 zuz. V'nosani mehem asayim zuz. And of the sale of the whole property, he gave me 200. Meaning, we view it as if what? The 1,000 was paid, and now the moicher is lending the lekeach 800. So now he was kind of the whole field. And no one's going to change their mind now. This is going to guarantee. In the first case, where you don't mention this stipulation, you'll say the 200 goes for that X amount of land, not on everything. But over here, the chachma over here is we're going to view it as if the lekeach paid him 1,000, even though he only paid him 200, and he's lent him the other 800. He made it into a loan. And I'm owed by him ches me'azuz kana umasle esashar fiulach kamashanim. He can go ahead and pay it back right over 8 years. Okay, now. Going back over this brisa, guys. Okay, the first part of the brisa, who changes his mind? The moicher changes his mind. What's the din? That lekeach can get 200 in cash or 200 in idios. Now, guys, we remember from Masechta Gittin, there's 3 types of land: idios, bainis, and ziburius. Only a nizik collects from idios. About choy from bainis, subasisha biziburius. Over here, you mentioned idios, ziburius. Does this mean the top quality of land that he has, or it means from the land, the field that you bought, that 1,000, the best part of that field? Okay, says the Gemara. Amamar, mehechin magbiu min idios. Now, kasal kedaitach mi idios nechasav, that you're getting from his grade A. In other words, not the field in question that he paid for, but a better field, like we said in Gittin, Park Avenue. V'lo yehei ela bal chayv. At worst, he's a Baal Chayv. He owes him the money. V'tnan, Baal Chayv dina b'beinis. So one question, why in the world is he getting idios? Only a nizik gets idios. V'oid, ha'arid yov zuzeh. You have the land that he paid for. That's where it should get it. The 200 feet from that land. So two pshatim. One, if he's going according to the letter of the law, he only should collect beinis. And Sveitens, why is he getting upgraded to stay within the field that he has and give him from that field? You're right. When the moicher changes his mind, he gets from the best of the $1,000 field, and when the lekeach changes his mind, he gets what from the last part of the field. That's one teretz. Rav Acha bereid Rav Ika Amar afilu tema me idios nechasav. You can even say he gets from idios, level A, guys. He gets from level A. The kasha is level A is nezikin. Where's the hesek over here? Listen to this. This guy to buy $1,000 field, he had to sell a lot of stuff to get the money together. What happens when now people say, "Wow, he's selling all the stuff." You know what? The guy is his reputation that he needs the money is really tough. Yeah. Now you went back on the deal, right? So the moicher caused him a problem. And therefore he's considered a masik. And therefore Taka would get not that field, he even get the upgrade. It says, person buys a land for 1,000 zuz, Obviously, Moisel Umasim. And he goes ahead and he's going around selling and what? And Nechasim. He's selling his Nechasim. And now what? He sold it for nothing? Right? The Havile Knizik. And now he's like, you damaged him? Right? For Tana, Nesikin Shom Lehem, Be'idius. Nesikin, you what? You collect from idiots.